Something has to be done to protect Mr. Mueller's investigation.
But Utah Republican Senator Mike Lee objected.
We cannot convert an office like this one, an office like the previously existing Office of Independent Counsel, without creating a de facto fourth branch of government, fundamentally undermining the principle of separation of powers.
Many Democrats fear that Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker could fire the special counsel or limit his investigation. President Trump has told the New York Post he hasn't ruled out a pardon for his one-time campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. The president's legal team saying Wednesday the special counsel's office has been pressuring Manafort and other witnesses. Signs of discord as the House Democrats nominate Nancy Pelosi for Speaker of the House. 32 of her colleagues voted no, Leader Pelosi seemingly unconcerned.
Scores of members of Congress who just gave me a vote are giving me a vote of confidence. That is where our focus is. Are there dissenters? Yes, but I expect to have a powerful vote.
The full House will vote on Speaker of the House in January. A group of leading scientists declaring gene editing of embryos, as a Chinese scientist claims to have done, remains irresponsible. Gathered in Hong Kong this week for an international conference on the subject, the group says the science holds promise for helping people, but not enough is known yet about its risk or its safety. More Americans died last year than ever before. 2.8 million, about 70,000 more than the year before. An aging population is part of it, but the Centers for Disease Control says suicides and drug overdoses helped push the average life expectancy of an American down to 78 years, 7 months. This is Fox News.
Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from King's Restaurants. Give a gift they are sure to love. Delicious food and friendly fun at King's. Get a coupon for a free single crepe with every $20 gift card purchase. Extra holiday happiness from King's Restaurants. Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from Chuck E. Cheese's Guam, Ruby Tuesday, and King's Restaurants. Receive special offers with every purchase for extra holiday happiness. See stores for details and have fun this season from all of us at the GFS Group.
There is turnover reported among members of the Central American migrant caravan.
More migrants are arriving in Tijuana, but there are also reports of others going home. There's a consistent line at the International Organization for Migration's tent of people asking for help to get back to Central America. The new administration of Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador says they'll probably let the migrants stay in TJ while they wait to apply to enter the U.S. Marcelo Ebrard is their new Foreign Relations Secretary.
Mexico, throughout its history, has never deported any migrant in Tijuana while they are waiting to claim asylum. In fact, every day there's a queue in Tijuana, not just now, but starting years ago.
He called on the U.S. to spend $20 billion to help develop Central American countries. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
They've thrown the switch on New York City's big Christmas tree. A 72-foot Norway spruce adorned with 50,000 lights, while in Washington, President Trump did the countdown as Melania Trump hit the button to eliminate the national Christmas tree on the wall. But in Alabama, a Birmingham suburb canceling its festivities.
The city of Hoover postponing Thursday's Christmas tree lighting because of the police shooting in a crowded mall on Thanksgiving that sparked protests. Demonstrators plan to attend the holiday event, but officials in the Birmingham suburbs say they postponed out of respect for the family of Amantic Bradford Jr. A police officer killed the 21-year-old after seeing him with a gun following a shooting that injured 2 people. Authorities initially thought Bradford was the shooter, but later said they were wrong. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
Wall Street, a big day. The Dow up 617 points on Wednesday. NASDAQ added 208 points. The S&P 500 closing 61 points higher after the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board signaled they may slow down interest rate hikes. Dow futures, however, for early Thursday, down more than 40 points. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from Ruby Tuesday. Buy a $25 or $50 gift card for those on your shopping list. Get a $15 bonus coupon with every $50 card purchase. Some extra holiday happiness from Ruby Tuesday. Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from Chuck E. Cheese's Guam. Get a free medium pizza with every $25 gift card purchase and a free extra large pizza with every $50 gift card purchase. Some extra holiday happiness from Chuck E. Cheese's Guam.
Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959. Now you can start planning for the holidays by getting a personal Christmas loan from $1,000 up to $3,500. Family Finance has 3 convenient locations to serve you. Give them a call in Dededo, 633-4473, Hagåtña, 475-4545, and the Upper Tumon location on the 2nd floor of the Pacific Building at 647-5626. Get your Christmas loans today from Family Finance.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Sanford Technology Group, STG, delivering service that can't be beat.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So yesterday we pursued the question of whether or not the right of the people to keep and bear BB guns shall not be infringed. And is our usual custom here on Tall Tales, when a question surfaces, we dig hard to find the answer. So I've got the answer as to whether or not a BB gun, whether the right of the people to keep and bear BB guns shall not be infringed. I'm going to read a little bit from a blog called airgunnation.com. And here's what it says. Some people have the mistaken idea that their right to own BB guns is protected under the Second Amendment. Many people have gone to court and argued that a municipality's ban on air rifles, pellet guns, BB guns is unconstitutional and violates their Second Amendment right to bear arms. Every court that has heard this argument has ruled that air rifles, pellet guns, and BB guns are not arms and therefore the Second Amendment does not apply. It is a statement of fact that there is no legal precedent defining air-powered guns of any type as, quote, arms. I draw your attention to People versus Nivar, a court case challenging the administrative code of the city of New York. Quote, defendant also argues that the New York City's ban on the possession of air pistols, Mo, violates the Second Amendment. He claims that air pistols are both arms and handguns and simply work differently from other handheld firearms. Thus, he argues that air pistols are entitled to Second Amendment protection and the city's outright ban is unconstitutional. Based on the information provided by the parties above about how air pistols operate and how air pistols manufacturers intend them to be used, this court must conclude that air pistols are not arms. Accordingly, this court holds that the administrative code of the City of New York does not implicate the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. More than a dozen courts around the country have heard this same argument and arrived at the same decision. Legal precedence is unanimous. Air-powered guns are not arms and are not protected by the Second Amendment. I suspect that this is something that the left had something to do. Because, you know, if a kid starts playing with a BB gun when he's young, when he gets a little older, what's he going to want to have? He's probably going to want to have a .22 rifle or a .410 shotgun. And before you know it, well, you can see where that's going. But be that as it may, there is apparently no Second Amendment protection for BB guns. And I read a case here about an air pistol. Now, we had a caller yesterday who just isn't going to cotton to this statement of the Second Amendment at all, because that caller said that in the morning he likes to sit out on his front yard and with his air pistol and listen to the Ray Gibson show. I can't think of a better way to start a day. And I guess right now you're probably in pretty good shape, Mo, but, you know, with a new crop of senators coming on board, we've got to be ever vigilant all the time. If the Second Amendment doesn't protect your right to keep and bear arms, keep and bear BB guns, there's no telling what could happen. Brad says pellet guns are necessary for the protection of property from sparrows and protection from grackles that attack you. And I can't say that I disagree with you, Brad. It's just that we can't rely on the Second Amendment in this particular case. If anybody ever thinks that it would be a good idea well, I know that the left thinks it'd be a really good idea to amend the Second Amendment right out of business. But if they ever tried, then that would be the counterpunch, so to speak. Amend the Second Amendment so that it also protects the right to keep and bear BB guns. So that's the Second Amendment portion of the program today. Once again, I'm going to give Mr. Justice Antonin Scalia a break and move straight over to the part of the that's the part. Zemi and Cotney meet the press. And today, no matter how the evaluation comes out, you know, on Meet the Press, we always compare and contrast the editorials of the two daily papers. And the better one gets a coveted blue star, and the not-so-better one can sometimes walk away unscathed, sometimes garner an F or an F minus or a 0. Well, today, regardless of how the evaluation goes, I'm knocking down the Daily News 1 grade, because the Daily News didn't even get around to putting out an editorial till a little after 2 o'clock this afternoon. Wow. Talk about a morning paper, huh? And they also put a little squib online that says the Daily News is not available today, but you could read the e-version online. So I guess this is one of those imponderables. What kind of a newspaper is it that doesn't put out a daily paper? But it's online. You know, the e-edition is online if you pay for it, and if not, then you can get, well, I guess I need to define terms here. If you pay for it, you can get the online, you can get something that looks just exactly like the hard copy. And then there's also the e-edition, which prints many of the stories, some of the death notices, the editorial and stuff like that. But apparently for the last 2 days, only the Guam Post has been printing a hard copy, and the Guam Post starts out 1 grade ahead because they had their editorial online at 5 o'clock this morning. So eat your heart out, Daily News. Okay, and then, as usual, the Daily News has a really hard-hitting editorial, which I'm going to have to read from my iPad because I couldn't print it out before I came down here. Here it goes, and this is something that the real Joe Cruz has ruled on himself just a couple days ago. Romaine lettuce, as you were, romaine roulette exposes farm-to-fork flaws. I'll give them credit for one thing. They did write a nice headline here. Romaine roulette exposes farm-to-fork flaws. Lots of alliteration there. An E. coli outbreak has led the CDC to warn Americans to avoid romaine lettuce and JBS USA to recall close to 100,000 pounds of ground beef. 3 E. coli outbreaks in the last 2 years have sickened dozens and killed 6 people. The FDA and the lettuce industry need to join the 21st century. Almost any guide to healthy eating, including the federal government's, advises that dark green leafy vegetables are vital to a nutritious, balanced diet. Now, I still remember George H.W. Bush when he was president. His second most memorable statement during the time he was in office, right after he said, "Read my lips, no new taxes," his second most memorable statement was, "I don't care what anybody says, I'm not going to eat my broccoli." I don't know which one of those statements caused his failure to be reelected, but neither one of them helped him very much. 2 days before Thanksgiving, the federal government warned everyone to throw away romaine lettuce. Stores shouldn't sell it. Restaurants shouldn't serve it. Consumers shouldn't eat it. You remember this, Real Joe Cruz?
I do remember this.
Yeah, and I queried you. What is it that we weren't supposed to eat?
The lettuce.
Yeah, romaine lettuce.
Yeah, well, Caesar is dead.
The Roman Empire came to an end, right?
Yeah, that's correct. You know, Bob, every time I'm going to start my diet, the lettuce is poisonous.
Uh-huh. That's what keeps you from it, huh?
As long as they let us remain friends forever.
Oh, very good, Real Joe Cruz. Even here on Guam, diners were being urged to toss romaine lettuce. That's because romaine, contaminated with a virulent form of E. coli bacteria, sickened 43 people in 12 states, including one person who developed kidney failure since last month. Last spring, another outbreak linked to romaine sickened more than 200 in 36 states and killed 5. An outbreak last year linked to E. coli with the same genetic fingerprint as the last one sickened 25 and killed 1. I don't think I'm going to eat much romaine lettuce in the future. The government was only able to trace that to leafy greens and couldn't say whether it involved romaine. I think the rule of thumb ought to be any green leafy vegetable is suspect. Don't tell that to kids, though. After nearly a week of suspense over where the most tainted romaine originated, the Food and Drug Administration announced Monday that it came from northern and central California growing regions. Several major producers agreed to label romaine entering the market by region and harvest date. But practices in parts of the industry are stuck in the dark ages after the end of the Romaine Empire. That's right. Rules require industries and the supply chain to keep records showing only where they got the food and where they sold it. Something has to be done. Last spring's outbreak was finally traced to romaine grown in the region of Yuma, Arizona, where an irrigation canal was tainted with the E. coli strain. The canal runs along a huge animal feeding operation sitting nearby the romaine farms. E. coli comes from the intestines of cattle and other animals. The FDA did not directly link the bacteria to the cattle operation, but you don't need a biology degree to understand the connection there. That sounds like something someone would say on Tall Tales. The leafy green industry needs to join the 21st century. No more Middle Ages here. Needs to join the 21st century in tracing its produce. And the cattle industry needs to clean up its act. If the industry doesn't step up, stricter laws will be needed. Until then, consumers will be forced to play romaine roulette. Okay, so let's spin the wheel here and see where it goes. I'm going to bet on red 25 this time around. Now, credit where credit is due. This is not the product of the local editorial board. This is from USA Today editorial board. So I guess there must be some kind of a short circuit down there in the Daily News editorial board. The editorial was late, and it was one that came from USA Today instead of being locally produced. But that's it. I'm not going to even consider marking a star on the screen of my iPad with my blue pen. So sorry, Daily News, you're out of the running before you ever even got into it. Okay, then we go to the Post. I wonder if I have the correct one for the Post. Maybe I screwed up myself. Because the one I think I better not be quite so critical. I'm going to have to go online to find the Post editorial myself, because apparently I didn't print that either. So hang on just a second, Real Joe, and I'll pull that up in just a second. Thing is always really slow when you're in a hurry, isn't it? Oh, yeah. I did print it up. I just can't find it. I probably stuck it in the card. Here it goes. Hope for lower cost of electricity does not hinge on elected CCU. Yeah, I did stick it in the card. That's why I can't find it. Yeah, it's right on top of the card here. On Tuesday night, the elected commissioners of the Consolidated Commission on Utilities approved the Guam Power Authority's decision not to reduce the surcharge on everyone's power bills over the next 6-month surcharge period, even with the decreases in prices of crude oil in the international market and forecasts of a slump in oil prices. GPA has stated that it will keep the fuel surge portion on power bills as is because it has been losing money from previous price increases of fuel that were not fully passed on to customers. You know where I'm going to come up with this one, don't you, Joe? The utility still anticipates a $5 million loss by the end of the next surcharge period, which will be between February and the end of July 2019, says GPA. International experts quoted by Reuters and CNBC have indicated a prolonged pattern of slumping oil prices. Brent crude oil hovered just above the 13-month low of 58.41 reached on Friday, Reuters reported. A failure by OPEC and Russia to cut supply significantly would mean crude prices would fall further, perhaps to between $40 and $50 per barrel or less, CNBC reported. The price of oil was hovering around $81 per barrel in September. GPA attempts to put a positive spin on its decision to leave the surcharge amid falling oil prices by issuing a press release quoting John Kim, GPA Chief Financial Officer, quote, "This should come as a welcome announcement to ratepayers during the next 6 months." A welcome announcement, as the fuel recovery charge on the energy statement will remain stable. This is really good news. With the cozy relationship between GPA and the elected CCU, Guam ratepayers hope for GPA's numbers and projections to be verified independently would be the Public Utilities Commission. The PUC has expert consultants that can verify whether GPA's numbers hold up. We, the ratepayers, look forward to an independent review by the PUC. Our hope lies in this rate-setting commission, whose members, ironically, were not elected by the public. So, that is Demi Cotney. At least the Daily News, at least the Post was on time. So, if for no other reason, I'll give the Post the coveted blue star. Just for being on time. And then, in addition to that, the Post news story is a nice predicate to the first item on the card, which is, I can't find anything today. First item on the card, which is Bob versus the CCU. Yeah, big surprise, right? And here's how it goes. This is a news story in the Post. Klitzkie petitions CCU to prohibit Black Friday pay. The Consolidated Commission on Utilities has authorized the Guam Power Authority and Guam Waterworks Authority to declare November 23, also known as Black Friday, a holiday 4 days after its passing. The retroactive authorization came during a meeting Tuesday. The only amendment to the Utilities Joint Resolution was to remove the word, quote, ratification, and to make the act a straightforward authorization. There was no prior authorization. There was no prior authorization to ratify, the commissioners stated. Basically, the GPA and GWA general managers got input from their board. Now, once upon a time, there was a poll vote taken, but now, as we continue to rewrite history here in the pages of the Post, now the two general managers got input from their board. There was no vote taken, not even a poll vote. And tonight, we're giving them that authorization, said CCU Chairman Joey Duenas. Attorney and former Senator Bob Klitzkie said the case is a classic open government law violation. Prior to the meeting Tuesday night, Klitzkie submitted a letter to the CCU seeking, among other things, information on the costs of that holiday, if it were paid. Commissioner Simon Sanchez told the Post that the decision to give most GPA and GWA employees a day off was made by a poll vote. Now, I wonder if Chairman Joey Duenas and member Simon Sanchez are commissioners on the same board because they seem to have different ideas of what happened on Tuesday night. Well, give me a few minutes and I'll be back to pick this up.
John Gibson, digging up history. It was a secret and murderous religious sect in India, feared by travelers, eventually stamped out by the government, and its name we still use every day. That story after this. Let's talk heirloom sheets and towels from Redland Cotton in Alabama. First, the family farm, growing the finest cotton in the world. The spinning, the looming, every step made in America, right down to the cutting and sewing. Sheets designed from a long-lost 1920s weave. The softest, most comfortable, longest-lasting sheets you've ever slept on. The Redland family dedicated to America and linens you'll treasure. Check out redlandcotton.com for America's linen. redlandcotton.com. In 13th century India, they worshipped the goddess of destruction. For hundreds of years, they led a secret life. Once a year, usually in the fall, they took to the roads, snuck up on unsuspecting travelers, strangled them, took their money, and dumped the bodies in ravines and deep wells. In the 1800s, the British were running India and decided enough was enough. Over 5,000 stranglers were arrested, at least 500 were hanged. The stranglers' century-long reign of terror was brought to a halt. But in a weird way, they live on to this day. The tribe of stranglers were known by their tribal name, thugs. I'm John Gibson, digging up history.
Enjoy a world-class breakfast in historic Talafofo at Jeff's Pirates Cove. Serving as both a military dispensary, recreation, and rehab center for pilots after the war, Jeff's Pirates Cove offers a taste of local history while you start your day with a delicious omelet or steak and eggs. If you're on a budget, pick up one of Jeff's $8 breakfasts, all served up with endless coffee. For reservations and information, call 789-COVE. That's 789-2683. Start your day at Jeff's Pirates Cove. Open daily at 8 a.m. in historic Ipan, Talafofo.
Call the experts at Guam Hearing Doctors if you're worried about your hearing. The evaluation is simple and painless.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Maybe I ought to save up some of those watermelon seeds and send them up to the CCU. Something seemed like maybe they could use it. So I wonder if Joey Duenas and Simon Sanchez went to the same meeting, because the meeting that Joey Duenas went to said that basically the GPA and GWA general managers got input from their board. There was no vote taken. And tonight we're going to give them that authorization. Simon Sanchez, however, said, told the Post that the decision to give most GPA and GWA employees a day off on Friday was made by a poll vote conducted during a regularly scheduled CCU work session. Interesting. Declaring Black Friday a holiday was not on the agenda that day, but the topic was raised wherein commissioners were polled and approval was given. So this is the mental image that I have. I look through the minutes of the work session, and this is the mental image that I have. There's some pretty heavy-duty items on the agenda for that work session, and somebody said, must have said, by the way, are we going to give our employees a day off with pay on Friday? And somebody else said, oh, yeah, that's right. Let's poll the members. Except for Joey Duenas, who said, no, we don't want to poll the members. We'll just give input to the manager of the two authorities here, power and water. This is almost like quantum mechanics, you know. You really don't, there really isn't any reality until somebody observes it. Sanchez said there may be a legal issue, but the Commission's legal counsel has looked at the matter over many years and has advised the CCU that a poll vote as described has been allowed. In his letter to the Commission, Klitzkie stated there is no legal basis for the Commission to make a decision in the matter. CCU's actions violated the open government law and are therefore void, according to Klitzkie. The decision to provide employees who did not work on Friday with regular pay and to provide employees who did work with holiday pay is void because there is no authority for management officials to allow the payment, Klitzkie said. He petitioned the CCU to prohibit payment to employees for Black Friday and is seeking any documentation to show compliance with the petition. So, again, this comes down to who did what and when was it done. The Commission obviously had my petition in its hands on the day before, on the day of their so-called ratification meeting. And at that time, there was no authority to pay anyone who didn't come to work for working on Friday. So employees at government agencies or companies or just about anywhere else don't sit around and wait until payday comes, then report to the paymaster, and the paymaster says, oh, let me think here. I think you worked 10 days. Reach into his cash drawer and dish out $10 worth, 10 days worth of pay. Documents are prepared every day in order to generate a check on payday, be they timesheets, roll calls, rosters, whatever. And we have an elaborate system in the government of Guam that includes people like certifying officers and other people like that. So, and the aim of this elaborate system is to make sure that nobody gets paid unless he works. So when those people who are employees of the Power Authority didn't go to work on Friday and the poll vote was void, if there was a poll vote, we're not sure because Joey Dueñas said that isn't what happened. But that decision was void, so there was no authority to suggest or tell or direct or permit anybody to come to work with the understanding you don't have to, I mean, not come to work. You don't have to come to work, but you're going to get paid anyway. We're going to call it holiday pay. There was no authority for that. And the same is true for those who actually did come to work and do the jobs that they're supposed to do, kind of on the promise that they would be given an extra day's pay. So that being the case, no one who had responsibility for any kind of record keeping on Friday had the authority to prepare the documents necessary to cause a payday 2 weeks later or whatever, however the days work out, because there was no authority for that. So then the next question is, well, if that happened, then can the commission, if it has that authority, can it exercise that authority retroactively? And my answer to that is, boy, I sure hope not. Because imagine the mischief that we could get involved with if any government official had, well, and we've seen it. We've seen the governor give retroactive salary increases. And we saw the Attorney General issue an opinion and say that that's a crime. He didn't do anything about it. But it's just not the kind of thing that responsible government officials do. If we're going to give people a day off with pay, it's not the kind of thing that should be done by an oh, by the way, at a work session. If you're going to do it, if you have the authority, make sure you have the authority, and then plan it out. And don't just kind of slide through it and then later on say, well, we're going to authorize it now because, well, that's what the two managers told the employees to do. So, you know, the sad thing is this, that in my mind, the CCU had a lot of credibility. Now, I was a big CCU booster. I've remarked on this program more than once that things improved so dramatically after the CCU took over the two utilities that there was no comparison. But a stunt like this really works against anybody's credibility. And I don't know if there's any correlation here or not, but the editorial in the Post says, you know, it's pretty snide about, let me see if I can find that passage again. Pretty snide when it says GPA's attempts to put a positive spin on this decision to leave the surcharge amid falling prices by issuing a press release quoting John Kim, General Financial Officer, quote, "This should come as a welcome announcement to ratepayers during the next 6 months, period, as the fuel recovery charge on energy statement will remain stable." So what the Post, in effect, is saying, come on, you guys, get serious. When we see the price of crude oil drop, don't try to slide one past us by saying you should feel really good because we're going to keep the same fuel adjustment factor that we had before. That's what happens when you fudge along with stuff like this. Well, we'll take a poll vote. We'll ratify it. Well, there's really nothing to ratify because we never took a vote. The resolution that I read yesterday that justifies the whole thing by saying, whereas the Power Authority and the Waterworks Authority continue to work diligently to provide essential power and water services to the island, and a day off is well deserved by the hard-working employees to contribute to the island's economy. Not cool. Not the way to build credibility with your customers out there, Power Authority and Water Authority, CCU, your ratepayers. Remember, you're supposed to be operating the two utilities for the benefit of the ratepayers, not to appear to be really good guys to the folks that work for the two authorities. That's not your mission. Your mission is to be, I don't have the language in front of me, but it's strong language requiring you to further the interests of your ratepayers and nothing else. So I think the 4th or 5th of December are the days I'm waiting for the return on my petition and my information, my sunshine law request. And when I get those, I'll see what I have to do next, because we can't let stuff like this go. Because if we let it go, then the thinking is, well, I guess it was okay because, you know, nobody said anything about it, and I guess it was all right. We just can't let stuff like this go, and I'm not going to let it go. So stay tuned to Tall Tales for the next chapter of How to Rewrite History by the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. Next thing on the card is Senator Fernando Esteves versus nature. And this is this is an article that I got from a publication called the National Review by one of my favorite writers, a guy named Ben Shapiro, who has a swift and sure grasp of reality that he never lets go of, right?
He's a really smart guy.
He is indeed. Yeah, so this is Senator Esteves versus nature, and this goes back to a call from our Carl yesterday, also known as Carlito, who told us that Senator Esteves attempted to amend the session agenda in order to move his bill. I don't remember the number of it, but his bill, if it became law, would allow a person to have his birth certificate amended. And the amendment could be like this. Let's say that the person were born a male. Now, I went through a definition yesterday of a male. A male is a person whose chromosomal makeup is XY. But if that person later on decided that he felt more like a female, he could jump through a few hoops and he could have his birth certificate amended at the Department of Vital Statistics so that instead of showing an M on his birth certificate, it would show an F. That's what his bill was all about. Well, he wasn't able to, his amendment, his motion to amend the session agenda to add that bill didn't go anywhere. And I don't think he was really happy about that particular result. Matter of fact, I think his dissatisfaction continues until today, but we'll pick that up tomorrow.
I think it was Bill 291.
Okay.
Yeah.
291. So that was the substance of the bill, and that was what it was about. So I've got a couple of things to talk about here. One of the things that I'm going to talk about here is reality, nature, reality, however you want to talk about it, and what Carlito referred to as postmodernism. But first I want to talk about gamesmanship in the legislature. Whether or not we like it, there is a high degree of gamesmanship played in our legislature. You've got 15 players, all of whom are looking for particular results, degrees of cooperation or opposition from the other members of the legislature. Some of the other variables are the media and how the media covers what they do, or in the case of the dog,
what he didn't say.
What they didn't do, yeah.
What they didn't do or
what
say.
they didn't do, yeah. Public perception of what they're doing, their constituents, their constituent relationships, their champions. So there's the concept of cover. And politicians are always looking for cover. If they have to make a hard decision, then the key word is cover. And the best example I can give you of cover is a movie called Miracle on 34th Street, which it's going to come up next month. Make sure you watch it. It's about an Edmund Gwynn character who kept presenting himself as Santa Claus. And, of course, it's too bad we don't have some Christmas music, Real Joe Cruz. I'm going to come back and talk about this and move it right on up to the big halftime show we're going to have at 5 o'clock, and then we may get another quote from our local equivalent of Yogi Berra.
Welcome to the annual holiday swap. Harold, you first.
Oh, it's a Subway card.
Wow.
Nice. Sharon?
I'm going to take the Subway card.
Oh, Harold, now you can choose a new gift.
I think I'll just take that Subway card right back.
Okay.
I don't think you can do that, Harold. Stuff it, Glenn. This is between me and Sharon.
A Subway card is the gotta-have-it gift. With cards from $5 up to any amount, you'll give a gift and get a gift, too. Get a free 40-ounce fountain drink with a $20 load, or get a free regular 6-inch sub with a $30 load on any Subway card. Subway, make it what you want at participating restaurants.
Happy Day, I'm Rod Boss. As the new president and CEO of Docomo Pacific, I want to personally thank you for voting us Pika's best mobile, internet, and cable service provider for 3 years in a row. For friends and families serving in the armed forces, you voted us Best of the Pacific again this year. Thanks.
Ask your friends and family to come over and give our mobile network a try, and we'll give them 3 months free. We have select devices up to 50% off. Sign up today. You plus Docomo Pacific. Better together.
Jeff's Pirates Cove, open daily at 8 a.m., serving up hot breakfast with endless coffee and a taste of history.
So, Miracle on 34th Street, and another movie called The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. A mandatory viewing for anybody who wants to be a politician, because they, in an allegorical fashion, demonstrate a couple of really important principles about politics and political perceptions. But back to Miracle on 34th Street. The Edmund Gwynn character presented himself as Santa Claus. He was a really nice guy, played Santa Claus at the department store, etc. The kids loved him. I suppose Virginia O'Hanlon probably had a picture of him in her room, if you know who Virginia was.
Is this where they tried to take him to court?
Yeah, yeah.
The city versus Santa Claus?
That's right. So he wound up in court, and of course the gravamen of the case was to try to prove that this guy was off his nut. Everybody knows. I hope there aren't any if there are any small children listening, please protect them from this adult subject here. But everybody knows there really isn't a Santa Claus, but the guy kept insisting, kept calling himself Kris Kringle. And the judge, the evidence was almost overwhelming, and the judge was prepared to rule, no, you're not Santa Claus, when his advisor came in and said, Judge, you know, your election is coming up here right after Christmas. Are you sure you want to rule that way? Well, in an example, a classic example of Deus ex machina for you literary critics out there, tons of mail had been written to Santa Claus, you know, protesting what was going on in court. And when the guys at the post office got this mail, they didn't know what the heck to do with it. It was all written to Santa Claus. So a couple low-level employees decided, heck with it. We'll just take it over to the court. So they come over to the court, come wheeling in these huge mail bags and dump these letters all over the place. And the judge says, well, if the United States Post Office thinks he's Santa Claus, who am I to rule against him? Classic case of cover. The judge had cover. So it's a long way to getting back to Senator Estevez versus the laws of nature. But I don't know, and I'm just going to speculate again, as is my usual custom. Senator Estevez possibly had people who were relying on him to advance Bill 191. He introduced it, it went to public hearing, etc., and they were probably depending on him to get it enacted into law because he's a lame duck. And for one reason or another, he couldn't get it on the agenda, probably because he doesn't have enough juice, meaning political pull, to get anybody to put it on the agenda for him. He's not on the Rules Committee. So the best that he could do would be a stunt, and that is, the motions part of the agenda, stand up and say, I move to place Bill 191 on the agenda, and do it in a very commanding tone of voice. And of course, if it doesn't pass by a voice vote, it doesn't go on the agenda. You can ask for a roll call or something like that. I don't know exactly how it came down. But there weren't enough people in the body who wanted that bill on the agenda. And Senator Estevez was not really very happy about that. But if my supposition is correct, he has cover. He's able to tell anyone who wants to know, I did everything I could. I even tried to put it on the agenda, but they just wouldn't vote for it. So I'm clean. I'm clear. So that's kind of a little insight into the gamesmanship aspect of what senators do at the legislature. Now let's talk to the substance of this bill that would allow the amendment of a birth certificate to change the sex designation on a birth certificate to make it accord with the feelings of the person identified by that birth certificate. Now, before I do that, I've got to go back into the definitions that I read the other day. Two key definitions, transgender and transsexual. Transgender, the difference between sex and gender is important to note. Gender is an internal sense of being male or female and is based on societal or cultural definitions of masculine or feminine. Sex refers to differences in chromosomes, hormones, external and internal sex organs. What is transsexual? A transsexual is a person who feels he or she belongs to the opposite sex and has a desire to assume the physical characteristics and gender role of the opposite sex. The transsexual person may use hormones or other medications to suppress or enhance characteristics of the opposite sex, such as facial hair or more developed breasts. Some transsexuals choose to have gender reassignment surgery, or surgery where persons' physical sexual characteristics are changed by surgery or hormone treatment. So transgender, transsexual, according to what I've got here, I don't purport any particular expertise on this subject. Anyone who would know any more about it than I do is welcome to call in and set the record straight. So here's what Ben Shapiro says. Sympathy for transgender people cannot trump objective reality. Last week, a member of my Orthodox Jewish congregation approached me at synagogue to tell me a story. Many of the women in the congregation exercise at a females-only gym for modesty purposes. The gym is successful. Its main constituency is religious women who don't wish to be stared at by men or to see men in various states of undress. According to the congregation member, this month a transgender woman, a biological male who suffers from gender dysphoria, came to the gym. This man retains his male biological characteristics, then entered the locker room and proceeded to disrobe. When told by management that he could use a private dressing room, he refused, announcing that he was a woman and could disrobe in front of all the other women. The predictable result, many of the actual biological women began canceling their memberships. When management asked people higher in the chain, they were simply told that to require the man to use a private dressing room or to reject his membership would subject the company to litigation and possible boycott. So the gym will simply have to lose its chief clientele because a man with a mental disorder believes he has the right to disrobe in front of women. As it turns out, there are indeed public policy consequences to the question of transgender pronouns. These public policy questions all revolve around a central issue. Can subjective perception trump objective observation? If the answer is yes, tyranny of the individual becomes the order of the day. We all must bow before the subjective wants, needs, and desires of people who require special protection from life's realities. We must re-educate generations of people to ignore science in favor of feelings. And I'll come back to this after the big halftime show we're going to have. At 5, like we always do with the marching bands and cheerleaders, etc.
point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A pardon in play? I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Trump says it hasn't been discussed, but he's not taking a possible pardon for his former campaign chair Paul Manafort off the table, telling the New York Post, "Why would I?" and suggesting that one of Robert Mueller's team has been pressuring Manafort and other witnesses to lie. Many Democrats are concerned. Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal.
Manafort is clearly putting all his eggs in the Trump pardon basket. He's gambling, and it's a big gamble that Trump will pardon him.
Others are worried about Robert Mueller's job as special counsel. They tried again Wednesday to get the Senate to take up a bill to protect him and the investigation.
Special Counsel Independence and Integrity Act is a bipartisan bill. I again repeat, this is about the legislative branch asserting a common sense check and balance on presidential overreach.
New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, but the attempt failed when Utah Senator Mike Lee objected to the bill as a threat to the separation of powers. The Democrats caucus in the House, as expected, taps Nancy Pelosi to run for Speaker in the next Congress.
The woman who has led House Democrats for more than a decade emerged from a closed-door vote calling her caucus unified and energized after they again nominated her for Speaker of the House.
Are there dissenters? Yes, but I expect to have a powerful vote as we go forward.
Pelosi was unchallenged by any other House Democrat, but 35 Democrats voted no or left their ballots blank on Pelosi's nomination. That's a number she'll need to cut in half to secure 218 votes to win the Speaker's gavel on January 3rd.
Fox's Jared Halpern. They've lit the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree in New York City.
It's something we've watched on TV since we were little, and to actually be here and see it in person is incredible.
72 feet of incredible, a giant Norway spruce topped with a Swarovski crystal star. This is Fox News.
Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from King's Restaurants. Give a gift they are sure to love. Delicious food and friendly fun at King's. Get a coupon for a free single crate with every $20 gift card purchase. Extra holiday happiness from King's Restaurants. Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from Chuck E. Cheese's Guam, Ruby Tuesday, and King's Restaurants. Receive special offers with every purchase for extra holiday happiness. See stores for details and have fun this season from all of us at the GFS Group.
The season of giving is here, and the stations of Choice Broadcasting want to give back. 93.3 The Point, Boss 104, Star 101, and Lux Guam present Charity of Choice. Each of our radio personalities have chosen a Guam charity that they would like to benefit.
And I chose Habitat for Humanity. Tune in daily to see how you can help.
Charity of Choice 2018 is brought to you by Choice Broadcasting Company, Lux Guam, American Water Tech, and the station that gives from the heart, 93.3 The Point.
President Trump leaves for Argentina on Thursday in the G20 summit meeting in Buenos Aires. A scheduled meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin is in doubt over the Russian seizure of some Ukrainian ships in the Black Sea.
Putin was taking a hard line with Ukraine. He made some remarks, blamed them for the firefight off the coast of Crimea. He also downplayed it by claiming it was just a minor incident, even though the Russian military is saying it will be deploying a new surface-to-air missile system in Crimea. That may be why the Ukrainian president is taking this deadly serious. He wore combat fatigues as he spoke to his troops and is warning there could be a full-scale war. Remember, Russia captured 24 Ukrainian sailors who have now been ordered to jail for at least 2 months by Russian courts.
Fox's Ed Henry. The Kremlin says it believes the meeting is still on. A controversial judicial nominee for a district court position just barely squeaking by in an initial vote in the Senate on Wednesday. Attorney Thomas Farr has been accused by some Democrats of defending racial gerrymandering, as well as a photo ID law that some say makes it harder for minorities to vote. Republican Senator Tim Scott, who's an African-American, taking heat for backing Farr, but Scott tells Fox News at night he's undeterred by his critics.
I'm going to take my hits, and frankly, that comes with the territory. At the end of the day, my goal is to do the right thing.
A final confirmation vote for Farr is supposed to be held in the Senate on Thursday. A body found in North Carolina preliminarily identified as a 13-year-old girl, ending a 13-week search by hundreds of investigators.
The body was found in a body of water off the Wiregrass Road in Robeson County.
That's Police Chief Michael McNeil. Hannah Aguilar was kidnapped from Lumberton, North Carolina on November 5th after going outside to start a relative's SUV before she headed off for school. in New York. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
For over 30 years, Sanford Technology Group has been helping companies throughout Guam and Micronesia with their payroll, time and attendance, networking, and other information technology services. Our online integrated payroll and time and attendance solution provides the workforce management tools and expertise to make your business more efficient and employee-friendly. For more information, visit Sanford Technology at 335 South Marine Corps Drive or call us at 647-0220 to schedule a demo today.
Welcome to the annual holiday swap. Harold, you first.
Oh, it's a Subway card.
Wow. Nice. Sharon?
I'm going to take the Subway card.
Oh, Harold, now you can choose a new gift.
I think I'll just take that Subway card right back.
Okay.
I don't think you can do that, Harold. Stuff it, Glenn. This is between me and Sharon.
A Subway card is the gotta-have-it gift. With cards from $5 up to any amount, you'll give a gift and get a gift, too. Get a free 40-ounce fountain drink with a $20 load, or get a free regular 6-inch sub with a $30 load on any Subway card. Subway, make it what you want at participating restaurants.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Sanford Technology Group, STG, delivering service that can't be beat.
More enjoyable every time I hear it. What a great halftime show. So we leave the halftime show and go back to the inspiring writings of Ben Shapiro. And once again, Ben says, we all must bow before the subjective wants, needs, and desires of people who require special protection from life's realities. We must re-educate generations of people to ignore science in favor of feelings. We must strong-arm individuals into abandoning central planks of their morality in the name of sensitivity. It's not just women who wish to avoid indecent exposure. It's doctors. Take, for example, a New York Times column this week by a transgender woman named Andrea Long Chu. The article titled, quote, "My new vagina won't make me happy." This is the New York Times. Argues that sex reassignment surgery, a gross euphemism given that sex is not assigned in the first place except by biology, should be available to anyone based simply on want. Chu acknowledges that his new vagina is, in fact, not a vagina, but a wound, and that it will require regular, painful attention to maintain. Chu acknowledges that his dysphoria has ballooned since, quote, "since I began transition." Chu admits, "I was not suicidal before hormones. Now I am." Still, Chu says he should be given transgender surgery based simply on want. Non-maleficence is a principle violated in its very observations, Chu states. Its true purpose is not to shield patients from injury, but to install the medical professional as a little king of somebody else's body. Meanwhile, Twitter announced this week that it would seek to ban those who, quote, misgender or, quote, dead name transgender people. In other words, if you note that Chelsea Manning or Caitlyn Jenner is a man, or if you use the names Bradley or Bruce with regard to the aforementioned transgender people, Twitter could ban you for repeated and non-consensual slurs. So you will abide by subjective self-definition, or you will be censored. Twitter recently banned a leftist feminist for merely noting that sex is biological and that men cannot become women. It doesn't stop there. As Walter Heyer of The Federalist reports, a Texas divorce case now pits a mother who dresses her 6-year-old male child, James, as a girl and calls him, quote, Luna, against James' father, whom she is accusing of child abuse for refusing to treat James as a girl. Heyer reports, quote, she is also seeking to require him to pay for the child's visits to a transgender-affirming therapist and transgender medical alterations, which may include hormonal sterilization starting at age 8. James, as it turns out, prefers being called James and being treated as a boy by his father. That's not stopping Mom. Refusing to abide by the judgment of a 6-year-old, or in this case, a 6-year-old's mom, could mean losing your child in a world where we treat sex as malleable. There are real-world consequences to deliberate rewriting of basic biology and the substitution of subjectivity for objectivity. It means rewriting business operation, school curricula, medical treatment standards, censorship rules, and even parenting. Sympathizing for those who suffer from gender dysphoria is obviously proper. No one wants transgender people harmed or targeted. But sympathy for a mental disorder should not trump either objective reality or competing priorities based on those objective realities. And here we go. Quote, the emperor's new clothes. Are you listening, Governor Calvo? The Emperor's New Clothes is not a story about the wonderful sensitivity of a population educated on the subjective desires of a ruler ensconced in sartorial self-definition. Falsehood crumbles in the light of day, no matter how sympathetic we are to those who wish to perpetuate it, unless force becomes the order of the day. Well put, Ben Shapiro, and not to be an alarmist, but it's scary where we are right now. It's scary where we are right now and where we're heading. And talking about where we're heading, you know, that's, of course, the future. And the CCU has its own definition of the past and the future and everything like that. So after the 7th inning stretch, we're going to ask Yogi Berra for his appointment or his feelings about the future. But right now, as far as Estevez versus Nature, he wasn't able to get his bill on the agenda, which means that it's not going to become law. And the fact that he introduced it says a lot. It says that these ideas have some currency. I think the word for the day is to be ever watchful and to listen to what Ben Shapiro says. Don't let your desires to be sensitive and empathetic overrule your common sense, which is what we're supposed to have an awful lot of here on Tall Tales. Let's hope that Tall Tales is not atypical of the rest of our local radio listening audience, not to mention our international radio listening audience, who, by the way, if you want to chime in on some of the really interesting topics we've been discussing today, are able to do so simply by calling 888-8255. Easy way to remember it, 888-TALK. Okay, and I go back now to a topic that I picked up on yesterday that has expanded just a little bit since yesterday, and it's called Incumbents versus Lou and Josh. And yesterday it dealt with two people, Mana Silva and J.I. Cruz. We add a third one today, and that would be Jim McDonald. So starting out with J.I. Cruz, we talked about J.I. Cruz yesterday, and yeah, okay, before I get to Joseph Cruz, let me pick up a caller here named Joseph. Hello, Joseph.
Hey, half a day, Senator.
Half a day.
You know, it's really scary what's going on today with transgender and gender identity. To tell you the truth, America is just flipping upside down, inside out. And you know, the thing is, I actually, read in the paper or read in the columns on the internet about how this LGBTQ phenomenon has plagued the United States, and how we're indoctrinating everybody to allow for conformity, and I just can't stand it. It makes me sick. And when I hear Senator Estevez introducing that bill, it makes me wonder. I'm like, where does he stand? Because I don't know the difference between Republican and Democratic Party anymore. I don't know what's the difference on this island.
I hear you, Joseph. I hear you. And it all kind of goes back to the Supreme Court, which I beat up on every day, the Supreme Court coming up with a decision that said that Henry can marry Herman, just like Henrietta could marry Herman, so that two people of the same sex can now go through a ceremony and pronounce themselves married. And that was the beginning of it. And it goes on and on and on. As bad as it looks, I'm afraid that we haven't seen the worst yet. And it's tough because that part of society has armed itself very well with weapons that it uses to beat up on those who hold conventional opinions, who would speak their minds, etc. So I'm glad you called in, Joseph. Okay, so back to incumbents versus Lou and Josh. Yesterday I talked about J.I. Cruz, also known as another Joe Cruz, not the real Joe Cruz, who is the current chief of police, who might possibly wind up as the chief of police at the airport, and how Ray Gibson discussed how there is talk that the position was tailor-made for another Joe Cruz because the announcement period was very short. hardly anyone knew about it. And of course, another Joe Cruz will be out of a job come January 8 when Lou and Josh take over. So that was one. The second person was Mana Silva, who I just barely started talking about yesterday. And Ray did some work on Mana Silva. Mana's his sister. And Ray talked to Jay Rojas, who is the administrator of GITA, and brought forth several facts. First of all, everybody who works at GITA is an unclassified employee, which I think is a mistake, but I'll put that aside for now. So as unclassified employees, they are the government equivalent of at-will employees. An at-will employee can be fired for a good reason or for no reason at all. So if the Lou and Josh team came in, they could fire the whole GITA board, and they could do away with the director and all of the employees if they so desired. According to Ray, Mana has already drafted a letter of resignation for submission to Lou and Josh when they do come in. According to Jay Rojas, 2 positions were abolished and combined into one that is paid for by a different funding source than the deputy director position that Mana held, and that will save the authority some money. So, according to everything that I heard from Jay Rojas on Ray's show yesterday, and I did preface yesterday's show with the idea that, everybody, it's one of those everybody knows that at the end of an administration, the idea is to slide your unclassified employees into classified positions to protect them from the new administration. But I have to conclude that from what I heard yesterday and what I know about the government of Guam, that doesn't appear to be the case with Mana Silva, because she's going from one unclassified position to another unclassified position. Jay Rojas took some issue with the wording of the Post news story, and I can understand that. And this is what was the objectionable part of it. The Guam Economic Development Authority recently created a new managing director position that pays about $100,000 a year, including benefits. And the job may have provided a parachute landing for former Deputy Administrator Mana Silva Tyron, who has been tapped for the job. Various sources familiar with the development state. The job title was created in October following a GITA board meeting. And I also have to add another thing that Jay Rojas added to the discussion was that although the budget law abolished positions of deputy director, it did so only for agencies funded by that budget, and that would not include GITA. The creation, back to the article, the creation of the job in the waning months of the Calvo Tenorio administration has stirred interest because cabinet officials, agency directors, and deputy directors are expected to submit their resignations as a courtesy so that the new gubernatorial administration can put its own people in place. However, it has been part of certain past administrations' practice to try and slide in some of their loyal supporters into job positions or titles that are deemed insulated from changes in administration. Neither Tyron nor GITA Administrator Rojas was able to comment. They were not in the office on Tuesday. Rojas is traveling. Tyron was out of the office for the day. I guess it shows that there's a lot of truth to the old saying, timing is everything. Had the Post reporter here talk to Rojas, perhaps this story would have come out a little differently. or perhaps if he'd called the next day, if Mana Silva had been there, it might have come out differently. Mary Okada, chairwoman of Governor-elect Lou Leon Guerrero's Transition Committee, said Monday there were no announcements at this point for any of the agency heads. A separate vetting committee will review all applications. Now, of course, you've tuned into the political intelligence line here, and you know already who some of the potential leadership positions are going to go to, so that won't be too much of a surprise. The next person on this list here is a gentleman named Jim McDonald. And Jim McDonald had been the chief of customs and quarantine in the Calvo administration until a person named Eric Palacios, as he entered Guam, was carrying a butterfly knife, and customs agents took the butterfly from him. And according to McDonald in a story that ran on the PNC News, Palacios approached McDonald to get the knife back. McDonald said, "No, I can't let you have it back. It's against federal law to give it back." So one would think that the appointing authority, that is the governor, would be glad that he had an administrator that strictly enforced the rules in his agency. But instead of that, the governor moved McDonald out of customs and quarantine and appointed Eric Palacios to replace him. That's kind of poetic, huh? So then McDonald went to DEPCOR as the deputy director, and he was fired at DEPCOR just a few days ago. And let's see what the story says about that. They wanted me to remove someone from the drug suspect list, and I said no. The only way a person's name is going to be removed from that suspect list is if we get our federal partners to say that this person has served his time and paid his dues, and apparently they weren't happy again with that. That wasn't the end of it for McDonald. With less than 6 months left in the administration, he was given the deputy director post at the Department of Corrections, but it would take a meeting between McDonald and the Leon Guerrero transition team, essentially the political opponents of Lieutenant Governor Ray Tenorio, as well as endorsement by McDonald's brother, Agana Heights Mayor Paul McDonald, for Adelup to give him the boot. So this time around, when the transition team, the Lou and Josh transition team, wanted to talk to McDonald, when the Calvo administration found out about that, they fired him from his deputy director position. Palacios, as you were, McDonald took it all pretty sanguinely. He said, they can select people, managers, and public safety, and I feel it's my responsibility to give them good advice. And apparently the administration wasn't happy with that. McDonald left his position as a DOT deputy director, and later it was announced that he would be replaced by Palacios. So it seems that when McDonald steps out of line, Palacios replaces him. And the Lou and Josh angle here is that the second time was because McDonald cooperated with the Lou and Josh transition team. Apparently, you know, no doubt, as they plan for the next administration. So that, of course, didn't fly very well with Lou and Josh either. Okay, time for a break? Yeah, all right, let's take a short break here, and then we'll come back for the 7th inning stretch.
Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from Ruby Tuesday. Buy a $25 or $50 gift card for those on your shopping list. Get a $15 bonus coupon with every $50 card purchase. Some extra holiday happiness from Ruby Tuesday. Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from Chuck E. Cheese's Guam. Get a free medium pizza with every $25 gift card purchase and a free extra large pizza with every $50 gift card purchase. Some extra holiday happiness from Chuck E. Cheese's Guam.
Select Care continues providing great benefits for federal employees and annuitants, a wide choice of medical providers on and off island, an expanded local network of urgent and emergency care providers, free access to our gym partners. Save on your purchases with our Calvo's Lifestyle Club partners. With all these great benefits, enrolling with Calvo's Select Care is that much easier. Federal employees and annuitants enroll today. Call 477-9808 for more information.
Gym membership and Calvo's Lifestyle Club are non-FEHB benefits.
Jeff's Pirates Cove, open daily at 8 a.m., serving up hot breakfast with endless coffee and a taste of history.
So this time, it wasn't, if you notice Jack Hattick, Real Joe Cruz, you know what it was that Jack Hattick did this time?
No, sir.
It's what he didn't do.
Oh.
He wasn't sitting out there in the right field stands catching that pop foul. But maybe tomorrow he will. Okay, so out in the center field bleachers here, we have a guy who sometimes kind of feels a little bit like Yogi Berra. So I want to ask him that question that I kind of propped up a little while ago. Joseph and I were talking about how grim the future tends to look in light of this postmodern approach to males and females, and sex and gender. So do you have any feelings about the future, Yogi Berra?
Well, the future ain't what it used to be.
Well, thank you very much, Yogi. Okay. Next item on the card, Terlahi versus Pelosi. This is Therese Terlahi versus Nancy Pelosi. And the reason that they're on the card is that they both want to be Speaker of their respective bodies. And if you've been following Nancy Pelosi, she's had a lot of difficulty. She was a speaker once before, and she distinguished herself with one of those really memorable quotes when the Affordable Care Act was being discussed on the floor of the House, and she spoke in favor of it by saying, "We've got to vote for it to find out what's in it."
Wait, is she the one that said she was like Native American?
No, that's Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Okay.
Better known as Pocahontas.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, right. So Nancy Pelosi wants to be the speaker now that the Democrats have the majority in the House. And a lot of Democrats who were elected ran on a platform, "I will not vote for Nancy Pelosi to be speaker." Now, some of those folks have caved in already. And it was announced today that in the Democrat caucus, Nancy Pelosi had the majority of the votes to be elected Speaker. But the Speaker is not chosen in the caucus. The Speaker is chosen on the floor of the House of Representatives. So that means that not only Democrats get to vote, but Republicans can get to vote. So if Nancy, I think, needs to pick up 15 more votes, if she doesn't, then the Republicans may have a significant role in deciding who the next Speaker of the House of Representatives may be. Here on Guam, we know that acting Speaker Therese Terlahi has evinced her interest in being Speaker of the Guam legislature. She's a freshman senator. Next year will be her second term. Kind of unprecedented for someone that green to be elected to the position of Speaker. It's usually somebody who's got 4 or 5 terms under their belt, his or her belt. But given the turn the rascals out move that occurred after the smash and grab of the salary smash and grab in November of 2014, we had an awful lot of newbies this time around. And that combined with the fact that a lot of old-timers are either ran for another office or hung it up, there aren't any very senior senators in the legislature right now. So seniority probably can't be the watchword. One of the one of the things working for Terlahi is that she has been in legislative council for several years. So one would think that she is pretty knowledgeable about parliamentary procedure, legislative drafting, etc. So there has been a lot of speculation as to whether or not she would be able to be elected Speaker. I've heard some people mention the name of Joe San Augustine as Speaker. And today there is an editor, as you were last night, there was a story on KUM News that provides a lot of insight into what's going on inside the Democrat caucus. Here it goes. Legislative Democrats continue to hold caucus meetings to determine leadership for the 35th Guam legislature. But one senator confirms there may be some major shakeups at the Congress Hall. A source at the legislature tells KUAM current Democratic talks are centering on Senator-elect Tina Rose Munya Barnes as Speaker. Whoa. Can you do that one? Let me try that. Senator Tina Rose Munya Barnes as Speaker.
Whoa.
There you go. Senator Talina Nelson as Vice Speaker. Senator-elect Amanda Shelton as Legislative Secretary. And Senator Regine Biscoe-Lee as Committee on Rules Chair. That's been the discussion, Democrat Senator Joe San Augustine tells KUAM News. They're leaning towards Tina. But ain't nothing guaranteed until the end of the day. Now, if we were to ask Yogi Berra how this worked, you know what he'd say, real Joe Cruz? He'd say, it ain't over till it's over. Senator Biscoe-Lee declined to comment on the caucus meetings, but San Augustine confirmed that Munya Barnes, Nelson, Shelton are in the mix for top leadership positions. Top senatorial vote getter and acting Speaker Therese Terlahi has said she would like to remain as the Speaker. There was a rumor I wanted to be Speaker. And of course, acting Speaker Terlahi has said she wanted it too, San Augustine said. There's still a serious debate on all the leadership positions, and we're moving along, saying you're going to get a position that could change by the time we're done. So this would be something of a coup for Senator Tina Rose Munya Barnes to be chosen Speaker over acting Speaker Therese Terlahi. who has been legislative counsel. Tina Rose Munya Barnes probably has 7 more lives to go, because in my memory, she is the only person that has ever lost re-election twice and then come back. I know there have been a few that have lost once. David Shimizu comes to mind, and then were elected later on, but Tina Rose has done it twice. So she obviously has some staying power. But for her, in a sense, seniority-wise, being below on the totem pole from Acting Speaker Terlahi, because since Tina Rose was just elected, that would be pretty newsworthy. The 35th legislature will be sworn in on January 7, San Augustine said. While there hasn't been any, quote, fighting in the caucus, talks have been intense. Wow, now, remember how joyous we were supposed to feel because there are a majority, the females have a majority in the legislature? I suppose it's just coincidence that the talks are intense. I shouldn't even mention it. They're intelligent discussion and debate, but there is no fighting among the 10. There's serious discussion, but no fighting, he said. In addition to the caucus talks, San Augustine said there is also wheeling and dealing going on outside of caucus meetings. Wheeling and dealing. That sounds kind of sinister, doesn't it? There is sideline discussion going on, San Augustine said. Now, Senator Tina Rose Munya Barnes points out that she has served 6 terms as legislative secretary. She's the longest serving ever legislative secretary. Terlahi says that she hopes that her colleagues can trust her. Terlahi, in an earlier interview, said she's hoping her colleagues would trust her knowledge of parliamentary procedures as counsel during 6 different speakers, her leadership as vice speaker, and her hard work and commitment to serve the community. I hope they can trust me, and they know that I will be fair and that I will do my best. It should be a goal of us here, Terlahi said, adding that she puts everything in the job. Terlahi has attended almost every public hearing on bills, adding that she reviews bills she's going to vote on because every legislation impacts families and communities. Well, I hope she's not the only one that reads the bills before she votes on them. So that's really interesting. But once again, the fact that a caucus is going a particular way doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that the cookies will finally crumble. Several sessions ago, we had a situation where Senator Tom Atta was the speaker anointed by the caucus. And when it came time for the vote on the floor, he wasn't elected. Instead, Don Parkinson was elected. Some of you older fellas will remember that. And what happened was a coalition between some Democrats and Republicans formed that put Parkinson in office as Speaker instead of Tom Atta. So we had the coalition, and then we had 8, loyalists who went by the name of the Crazy 8 back in those days. But it stands for the proposition that leaders, that what happens in the caucus doesn't necessarily carry through to what's going to happen on the floor. So let's see what kind of comments I'm getting here on Facebook on this one. Don Edkalani says, shake it up. Guam activist Sabina Paris for Guam legislative speaker. Brad Hewitt says, we want catfights. Brad Hewitt goes on to say, don't trust Pelosi or Terlahi with her procedure now as vice speaker. Constantly has to be reminded what's going on in the lawmaking house. What makes her think that 2019 will magically help her grasp the knowledge? Well, that's pretty harsh, Brad. And Carlito comes along saying, I'm hoping there will be fights over containing spending with a supermajority. I'm highly skeptical. Well, a little skepticism probably is exactly what's in order there, Carl. When it comes to the legislature, the famous saying attributed to Mark Twain is this: no citizen of this territory's life or property are safe while our legislature is in session. And that may very well be words by which to live. So much for Terlahi versus Pelosi. I can't say that I'm really backing Pelosi. As far as the Guam legislature is concerned, I'm going to be an extremely interested observer, and that's about it. Carl also chimes in and says, B.J. Cruz, where are you when we need you? B.J. turned out to be a pretty good speaker, didn't he? All right, so the next item on the card is called Trump versus Roberts. And it's an editorial by one of my favorite columnists, Carl Thomas. And I started talking about this a few days ago, but Trump came out and criticized the Supreme Court and talked about the liberal Ninth Circuit and Obama judges, and Roberts came back and said there are no Obama judges or Trump judges. We're all impartial, and we're just trying hard to do a really good job. That one probably is a pretty hard sell for anybody who's watching the court. This is Roberts' exact words. We do not have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges, or Clinton judges. What we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges doing their level best to do equal right to those appearing before them. That independent judiciary should be something we are all thankful for. And the columnist here, this was in Town Hall, said, every word of this is blatantly false, and the punctuation is pretty deceptive too. If you dished out such a dog's breakfast of bogus cliches to one of those vaunted jurists he refers to in an oral argument, you'd have a bad day, and you should. But the worst part is how transparently false it is, how indisputably and insultingly incorrect it is, how in your face, daring you not to burst into laughter, wrong it is. Was it, don't we have a national mud wrestling match? Didn't we have a national mud wrestling match over a justice Trump appointed? Was it because everyone was really concerned about Kegger Kavanaugh's high school antics? Or was it the fact that he would be a Trump judge and liberal weirdos offering Ruth Bader Ginsburg their ribs for transplantation because there is no such thing as a Clinton judge? So then back to Cal Thomas. Cal says, last week the president criticized the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit based in San Francisco, calling it a lawless disgrace. The New York Times writes, Mr. Trump's remarks came after a federal trial judge ordered the administration to resume accepting asylum claims from migrants no matter where or how they entered the United States. The judge issuing the ruling was John S. Tiger. Yeah. I don't think he's going to change his stripes. Of the United States District Court in San Francisco, whom Trump quickly singled out as an Obama judge. This prompted a rare pushback from Roberts, who said in a statement, "We do not have Obama judges," etc. The problem, as the president correctly sees it, is that the judiciary in too many cases appears to have become independent of the Constitution. Now, where have you heard that before? Okay, so we're coming down the home stretch, so I'm going to wrap up here with Trump's versus Roberts. It's another opportunity for me to criticize the politicians in black robes called the Supreme Court.
Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from King's Restaurants. Give a gift they are sure to love. Delicious food and friendly fun at King's. Get a coupon for a free single crate with every $20 gift card purchase. Extra holiday happiness from King's Restaurants. Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from Chuck E. Cheese's Guam, Ruby Tuesday, and King's Restaurants. Receive special offers with every purchase for extra holiday happiness. See stores for details and have fun this season from all of us at the GFS Group.
We're surrounded by sound. There are sounds that you need to hear. There are sounds that you want to hear. And there are sounds that you long to hear.
I love you.
Hear it all, louder and clearer than ever before. If you or someone you know has a hard time hearing, Guam Hearing Doctors can help, using state-of-the-art test gear to evaluate your hearing and coming up with a plan to make your life better by making your hearing better. Call Guam Hearing Doctors for an appointment or visit them on the web at guamhearingdoctors.com.
Call the experts at Guam Hearing Doctors if you're worried about your hearing. The evaluation is simple and painless.
So there we are, back to Trump versus Roberts. And this is what Cal Thomas says. The problem, as the president correctly sees it, is that the judiciary in too many cases appears to have become independent of the Constitution, making laws and reading liberal policies into the document that are not there. You got it right, Cal. If all judges thought the same as Roberts seems to suggest, why are there so many 5-4 rulings by the court, by the High Court? And going back here to the Ninth Circuit for a minute, it's interesting that, and I think the article points this out a little later on, that when it came time to seek a judge on the matter of asylum, a judge from San Francisco was chosen. The San Francisco, of course, is in the Ninth Circuit, which has long had the reputation of being the most liberal. And I explained once before why that was, and I'll do it again. Back during the time of Jimmy Carter, the way the dice rolled, there were a lot of vacancies on the Ninth Circuit. And Jimmy Carter got to fill a lot of those vacancies. And, of course, Jimmy, being a liberal Democrat, filled them all up with liberals, one of whom was a gentleman named Harry Pregerson, who just died this year. He was the most senior of the bunch that Carter had appointed. And there was a Guam connection with Harry Pregerson. His son, Dean, had served on Guam in the Public Defender Service Corporation. Dean then went on to be a district court judge, federal district court judge in the Central District of California. As I recall, Dean, he wasn't that liberal, but the Ninth Circuit really has that reputation. And I've pointed this out before, that in a case where the United States is the defendant, a single district court judge in many cases can issue a ruling that is binding throughout the entire country. And that's when the folks in Hawaii got so upset with attorney Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions was complaining about the issuance of a ruling stopping immigration from 7 countries that just so happen to have large Islamic populations. And Jeff Sessions complained, as Jefferson Beauregard Sessions, by the way, Jeff Sessions complained that a judge out on some little island in the Pacific can stop the whole federal government when it comes to this important matter. And, of course, the people in Hawaii just rose up in horrible, righteous indignation. Don't they know that we're a state, et cetera, et cetera? And, of course, Sessions did, but he was using that figure of speech to emphasize that the way the federal judiciary is set up, one judge in a remote location can affect entire national policy. So that explains perhaps why, if you're trying to have an impact on U.S. asylum policy, you wouldn't go down to Brownsville, Texas, where you've got a conservative judge. You would go to San Francisco, where you're more likely to find a liberal judge that will go along with you. Conservatives have long complained that liberal judges advance policies that would never get through Congress. And that's been my complaint, that if you can't get it through Congress, then maybe the Supreme Court will enact the law you're looking for, and if they can't, they'll just go ahead and amend the Constitution for you. Besides, if there are no Trump, Obama, Bush, or Clinton judges, then why the battle over every candidate nominated by a Republican president? Have we already forgotten the recent all-out war mounted by the left against Justice Brett Kavanaugh? In a Thanksgiving Day tweet, the president claimed, quote, "The Ninth Circuit has a horrible reputation. It's overturned more than any circuit in the country, 79%, and is used to get an almost guaranteed result. Judges must not legislate security and safety at the border or anywhere else. They know nothing about it and in making our country unsafe. Our great law enforcement professionals must be allowed to do their job. If not, there will be only bedlam, chaos, injury, and death. We want the Constitution as written." Well, I certainly concur with President Trump there. I want it as, I would hope that we could have it as written also. Going on, in fact, the Ninth Circuit rulings are not the most overturned. According to data compiled by the U.S. Supreme Court blog, that particular distinction goes to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit, which is in Ohio. But that last sentence is the heart of the debate that has been going on at least since the 1960s and centers on what standards should be used to interpret the Constitution. Does the Constitution speak for itself, or does it say only what judges say it says, as the late Chief Justice Charles Evans Hughes contended a century ago? I guess a lot depends on how you read the word militia. So I'll probably get back to this tomorrow. I've pretty much gotten across the main point of the article. But anytime I can be critical of the United States Supreme Court, I can't resist the urge. So see you all tomorrow.